To make Nightwing's costume, I'm using these rather large black EVA foam. These ones are 1 centimeter thick, and these are just the big flooring mats that are interconnectable. So I've got quite a few of those that I'm going to be using. And then for some of the softer pieces, I've got a very thin EVA foam, which is 4 millimeters thick. And this particular one, I buy it because it's easy to work with, and this is just a yoga mat. To make the pattern for the gauntlets, I like to take aluminium foil and wrap it around my arm, or in this case, the person that I'm making this for, so that I can get the exact fit, and then just take your pattern and transfer it onto the EVA foam. Once you've got your pattern made for your gauntlet, I'm using the thin EVA foam, and then we're just going to cut the 3 pieces out on there and then glue them all together using the contact adhesive, and then I'm painting it all black. To make the small little tabs that we're going to be joining it with, we're just cutting the small little pieces out like this. So that's what the tabs look like for the closures, and I'm cutting these ones all at a 45-degree angle, so I've got beveled edges on them. And then once you've cut them all out, we're going to glue them to the gauntlets, and I'm using Velcros to close the tabs up. So that's what the gauntlet looks like. So I've glued it all together, and when you've done your pattern, you've sliced just a little bit there to make it curve, and then we're using the heat gun to curve it to exactly the shape of the arm. And these are the wee tabs that we've glued on, and as you can see, I've put Velcros on each of the tabs so that when it closes up, it all closes nicely like that. You can paint the inside as well. I haven't done that. And then we can work on the design that goes around the top of it. Once again, just cut your pattern out on your newspaper, transfer it to the EVA foam, and then cut it out. So that's the pattern that we've gone for this particular one. I've also glued the spikes on. Now to make these spikes, I've just taken the border piece of foam to make the spikes for the gauntlet. And I've used a very, very sharp empty cutter or box cutter to cut the shapes out like that and beveled them all so they look like this. And then just glue them on. And as you can see, when you cut your gauntlet to the shape of your arm, it sits on your arm very, very nicely. So just cut your gauntlet exactly the size of your arm to do this. And then make 2 of them. Remember though, you've got to do them, if you're using the same pattern, you need to do a reverse pattern, so you've got a left and a right. To make the upper arm, I'm using the thick EVA foam like this, and you want to be drawing your pattern, so you need to have a small piece like that, and all these pieces are cutting at a 45-degree angle going inward so that they taper around your arm, and then you want to slice a little hole through there so we can thread the elastic. So you have to work out exactly how big your arm is, and those are the patterns that we're doing. And then for this particular one here, I'm just taking my box cutter and scoring that like that, and then heating them so that they split open a little bit, but without going through the EVA foam. So just cut all those pieces out, and then take your contact glue and glue it all together. So your piece, I'm not showing you all these things because it takes too long for the video, so I'm just explaining to you what I've done and then showing you what it looks like. So there's my piece made. I've threaded the elastic through the little holes that we cut there, and that's where the heat gun opens those little splits that we cut out. And then I've just put a piece of Velcros on there so it can attach to the shoulder piece. Just remember when you're using your pattern that you've got one going in one direction and the other one in the other direction, so you've got a left and a right. For the shoulder piece, it's the same thing. We're cutting out 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, and then we're going to be shaping them. These little ones here, I'm using my box cutter to score those and then to open them out with the heat gun. To shape my pieces, I've got a rather large crystal ball, and all I do is I take it and use the heat gun, and then I shape it so that it goes around to give me the round shoulder like that. And then I've glued a strip of elastic in the middle so that it can attach to the upper arm gauntlet or armor. On my soft EVA foam, I've just cut out a shape of the eagle and placed that on, and then just weathered it with some black or grey paint. So that's what the shoulder piece looks like. And then I've glued a piece of Velcros onto there as well, so that this one just glue will stick onto there, so you've got your complete shoulder piece. That looks like that. I've drawn this design for my Nightwing chest plate. I'm cutting all the pieces out of the thick EVA foam. These little ones here are going to have to be worked on so that we've got our piece. So this is the whole center piece. That's quite big. So each one of these little pieces, we're going to be doing a cutout like that, so that the next piece can lie on top of that. And then we're going to cut them all out. Now, when you are joining them, you must make sure that you try and sand so that the glue actually adheres very nicely to each piece. And then we join all the pieces, so we'll have a join there. There's another piece that goes like that, and around along the chest. So we've got this piece like that, and then the side pieces for the waist. As I said, you have to measure your measurements for your chest to be able to get the exact pieces. These ones are to go around the waist, and we're cutting a little hole in there and a little hole in there so that we can put our attachments on. So this small piece here has been cut down so this one can sink in, and then I've glued it all together, so each individual piece, and then I've attached it all with elastic so that it's got movement for when you want to sit down. So all the pieces have been glued together for the front chest piece. To shape all my pieces that are curving like this, as I said, I use the heat gun and then use my crystal ball and then just rolling to get the shape for the chest. On the sides where you want it tapering, I've used my Dremel to just bevel that so it goes down. So there's the chest piece. So as I said, it all moves nicely so you can move in it. And for the side pieces here, we've got the Velcros and elastic on it so that they can attach to the back panel. And then I've also put elastic at the bottom underneath from the chest piece so that I can thread the belt through there so that it doesn't slide up. For the design for my chest piece, I've just drawn an eagle and I've divided it in half so that I can cut it out so both wings are exactly the same. And I'm doing that on the blue EVA foam. So I've got a nice eagle going across the front of the chest here. So that's the front of the chest piece completed, and I've just put the logo on and weathered it with some grey paint. The top where we cut for here, once again I've taken my Dremel and just beveled that as well. And now we'll work on the back. The back is quite a lot easier than the front, so all we've got is 7 pieces. So we've got the ones that go over the shoulders, so these ones are going to have to be shaped, and this part all the way around the neck here I've beveled at a 45-degree angle. And then you've got the shoulders that are coming through, and these ones are going under the arms to attach to the front piece, and the back piece is pretty much just straight down. So that one piece I'm doing as a whole piece, and then cutting those 4 pieces, and then those 2 pieces for the bottom part. I work on a small paper pattern like this and then cut it all out on newspaper to make sure it fits before I cut it out on the EVA foam. And now we've cut it all out and then glue all the pieces together. And then on the blue EVA foam, which is the thin foam, I'm just cutting pieces like that to put some decoration on the back. So cutting 2 pieces exactly the same. And then we're just going to glue those pieces on as well. Remember this part over here and there, you need to shape to go over the shoulders. For the shoulder pieces, I'm cutting a piece of EVA foam, which is the thick one, and this part here going down at the angle to attach to, which would be the front of the costume, and it goes to the back of the costume, so you just have to shape that to go around that as well. On the inside one going along the neck, I'm taking my Dremel, I'm going to put that at a 45-degree angle, and now we can glue all these pieces together. So I've got them all glued together, and this one I've also put the elastic on so that it can hold this in place. So that's what the back piece looks like. And now moving on to the shoulders, as I said, you need to curve them so that they're like that. So from the side, there's your shoulder piece. And that's the whole piece of the chest armour completed. So I've threaded the elastic through there so that it can hook onto the velcros behind here, and this one I've threaded through so I can thread it through the other hole and then attach it to the velcros behind here. Pretty happy with the way that turned out. And we've glued those shapes onto here as well. Unfortunately, this armour is not for me, so I've made it for somebody else, so I can't show you what it looks like on. So that's my completed Nightwing armour. We've got the gauntlets, the shoulder pads, the arm pads, and that's the front of it. And that's the back. To make the mask, I've just drawn my design onto a piece of paper, and I'm going to be cutting that out onto EVA foam and painting it black, and then I'm going to be moulding it. So to mould it to get the right shape, I've got one of these like paper mache plaster of Paris masks, so that I can get the indentations and things like that for that. And I've just taken my heat gun and I've just molded it so that it fits perfectly like that. And to attach it, I'm going to be putting double-sided tape all the way around the mask. And to complete the look, His eyes are going to be all blacked in, and he's got white contact lenses. So it should be rather a nice looking costume. If you found this video helpful or you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Really appreciate it if you would subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.